Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Diving into Data and the release of the KC Tech Council Annual Tech Industry Report, KC Tech Specs, which is available to download right now via kctechspecs.com. My name is Ryan Weber. I'm President and CEO of the KC Tech Council, and I'm proud of our team's hard work and dedication while collecting, analyzing, interpreting all the data that is going to be presented today, and including much more data that's included in this year's report. We are now excited to share this information with you and the entire community. I encourage you, especially during today's presentation, if something sparks a thought for you, to engage on social media using the hashtag KCTechSpecs. I now want to thank our report sponsor, RSM, for continuing to be a lead supporter of KC Tech Specs and the KC Tech Council. And today, representing RSM is Davis Nordell, a senior tax manager and senior analyst focusing on the technology, media, and telecommunications industries. Davis, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Good morning, and thank you for attending today's launch event for the 4th edition of the KC Tech Council's Tech Spec Report. As Ryan said, my name is Davis Nordell, and I am a senior technology analyst at RSM. At RSM, our purpose is to deliver the power of being understood to our clients, colleagues, communities through world-class audit, tax, and consulting services focused on middle market businesses. The business world is evolving rapidly, and in this fast-paced environment, RSM understands that you need an advisor who thinks ahead and rapidly responds to your changing needs. At RSM, we build strong relationships based on deep understanding of what matters most to our clients. It is through relationships with organizations like the KC Tech Council that provide us a window into the changing business landscapes and innovative new technologies being developed in every community across the country. The perspectives and insights gained from working closely with the KC Tech Council help RSM to bring first-class service to our more than 2,700 tech, media, and telecom clients across the country. The technology ecosystem has fared far better than other industries throughout the duration of the COVID-19 pandemic, and is positioned to continue strong growth for many years to come. The same can be said for the states of Kansas and Missouri and its well-positioned technology community. The Kansas City metro area has recovered 61% of the jobs lost compared to the national average of just 52% through the first quarter of 2021. And is experiencing an increasing amount of venture capital investment deployed to technology companies headquartered in the two states. In our analysis, these are promising trends, among others, that position this community to experience solid job growth, high wage paying jobs, and an expanding economic environment as it emerges into the great after. RSM is proud to contribute to and support the work that the KC Tech Council is doing to support this tech community and its initiatives it has in place to support expanding the computer science education in the region to empower the next generation of tech entrepreneurs and leaders. On behalf of the nearly 13,000 RSM employees across the country and the more than 1,600 focused on serving technology companies, thank you and enjoy the remainder of this morning's event. Ryan, back to you.
Thanks, Davis. That was a good preview. We're going to go much further into some of the things you just mentioned around the strength of Kansas City's tech industry in both states, Kansas and Missouri. And thank you again, Davis, not only to yourself for sharing your expertise with us today, but also for the support of RSM, not only in today's report, but at the KC Tech Council as well. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Karen Hornig, who is CEO of the National Insurance Producer Registry, or NIPR, and chairperson of the KC Tech Council Board of Directors. Karen?
Good morning, Ryan, and thank you, and welcome to everyone. It's my pleasure to serve as the chairperson of the KC Tech Council's Board of Directors. Today's presentation of the Council's Tech Industry Report, KC Tech Specs version 4, highlights important metrics regarding Kansas City's regional tech industry and tech industry data about the states of Kansas and Missouri. The report also includes market comparisons from 5 peer cities: Austin, Denver, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, and Nashville. As the leader of NIPR, a tech company that serves state insurance regulators and the insurance industry in all 50 states, It was clear in March of 2020 that it was the technology itself that allowed us to transition effectively to a new way of working and delivering services to our customers. The 2020 data in KC Tech Specs proves, as Davis just mentioned, the strength and resiliency of the technology industry as a whole during a time of crisis. But we have opportunities to improve, particularly around diversity, equity, and inclusion. As business leaders know, this is not just a social justice issue. Research consistently demonstrates that DE&I is good for business. A more diverse workforce results in higher financial performance, higher levels of innovation and productivity, and measurable return on investment for recruitment and retention of top talent. While the report analyzes 2020, we must think beyond and position Kansas City as a leader in the post-pandemic world, or as described in the report, the great after. It's important for those of us who are leaders in the region's Tech Council to be knowledgeable about the industry that we represent. Therefore, I encourage you to download KC Tech Specs from the Council's website, read the full report, and share this information with your peers and other community leaders. On behalf of the KC Tech Council's Board of Directors, thank you for being with us today, and I hope you enjoy the industry analysis and presentation.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for your support and leadership. And you're right about 2020. It was certainly a unique year and a unique year to analyze as well. But I agree that you will see a lot of interesting aspects about how Kansas City's industry is leading, but also how it can do much better to prepare ourselves for the future. Now, before we dive into the data, I'd like to share two special messages from the leaders of both states represented in the KC region, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly and Missouri Governor Mike Parson.
Hello, I'm Governor Laura Kelly. I want to thank the KC Tech Council for inviting me to participate in this event, recognizing the rapidly growing tech industry in Kansas. As we all know, the receive medical care safely. Despite the new hurdles we faced last year, our state's technology industry experienced record growth, contributing more than $10 billion to the state's economy. That's $1.3 billion more than in 2019. But we know we can bring in even more. My administration is committed to fostering continued growth in our technology industry, lasting long after the pandemic is over. To that end, last year, I created the Office of Broadband Development, tasked with developing strategies and policies to improve broadband infrastructure across Kansas. Critically, we included $85 million for broadband deployment in the landmark 10-year transportation program I signed into law last year. We allocated $5 million in broadband acceleration grants to Kansas communities for broadband infrastructure improvements. In addition to increasing access to quality, affordable internet, my administration is laser focused on growing our state's ability to support entrepreneurs and build a robust ecosystem for tech-focused companies to succeed. We know that in our ever-evolving global economy, high-risk startups hold the most potential for the most growth. That's why this year, I signed a bill renewing the Kansas Angel Investor Tax Credit Program. The legislation includes additional funding for our state's entrepreneurs and emerging startup companies to attract capital from investors both in and out of state. But these startups can't succeed without access to a robust pipeline of workers with the skills and training they need to succeed at high-paying, in-demand tech jobs. Kansas tech companies are hiring, and thousands of open jobs are available today. I look forward to working with the KC Tech Council to invest in workforce training programs like Apprenti Kansas City, and other statewide programs to ensure Kansans have the skills they need to fill these open jobs. My administration is committed to doing all we can to support the tech industry in Kansas, ushering in a new era of prosperity and growth. Take care.
Hi, I'm Governor Mike Parson. Missouri's technology industries continue to thrive and played a vital role in connecting our society, students, and workers. 2020 was challenging for so many businesses. Our state's technology industry experienced record growth, contributing more than $22 billion to the state's economy, $700 million more than 2019, and added a total of 13,146 new jobs in 2020. Last year, our administration directed $50 million in COVID-19 relief funds to aid the development of broadband internet, to further the development of broadband internet to underserved communities across the state. The global pandemic further validated why connecting all Missouri residents to high-speed internet access is fundamental to our future. Workforce development is a high priority to my administration and critical to filling the demand of Missouri's tech employers. I am proud of developing and implementing the Fast Track Workforce Incentive Grant Program, a new financial aid program for adults. Missouri residents seeking a certificate, degree, or industry recognized credentials in an area designated as high need. Today, there are thousands of available tech jobs in Missouri. Not only does this represent a high need, but also a great opportunity to train our Missourians to meet our current and future workforce needs. I look forward to working with the KC Tech Council to capitalize on strong momentum, focus on creative solutions to educate our future workforce, and partner on workforce training programs like Apprenti, Kansas City, and other statewide programs to ensure Missourians have the skills necessary to fill those open tech jobs and compete globally. It is an honor and privilege to be the 57th governor of the great state of Missouri. God bless and thank you very much.
Thank you both to Governor Kelly and Governor Parson for sharing those remarks and continuing to support the tech industry by recognizing the enormous economic impact that technology employers have on the economy, but also on jobs. I also want to thank them for supporting important tech legislation. You heard them both mention their investments and recent investments in expanding broadband initiatives across the state. I think 2020 showed us very clearly how important internet connectivity for all is during times of uncertainty, but also how important that's going to be for the future of our state. Now, for the KC Tech Council, if you're not overly familiar with who we are and what we do, our organization is fully supported and funded by our member companies, our sponsors, and our community partners. There are three major pillars of our work to how we support the tech industry. Industry access, which is what we're all getting a chance to experience today with the release of this report. That pillar also encompasses a number of events and other research and data that we produce on a more frequent basis, as well as policy advocacy, where we represent Kansas City's tech industry in both state capitals, as well as in Washington, D.C., which has been a very active period for tech legislation. And we are proud to represent Kansas City's tech industry in this way. Also with workforce development. Now, you heard both governors talk about Apprenti Kansas City. You're going to be learning more about that today if you are not aware. But also workforce development is incredibly important to our future industry here in Kansas City. And soon you'll see just how much of a need we have, but also how much growth has occurred over the last year. Now, our organization receives critical feedback from our volunteer leaders, including the KC Tech Council Board of Directors and the Industry Leadership Council. And I know there's a lot of names on the screen here. I want to thank each and every one of them for continuing to serve as a leader in the tech industry and making sure that the work the KC Tech Council does is helping advance all of our priorities in supporting the tech industry here regionally. Now, inside this report, you're going to see citations from a number of different data sources. And all of those logos are represented here on the screen, and as well as each slide when we're presenting the data. As you can see, there are a number of sources that were leveraged to contribute to today's information. Now, I am very excited to introduce the person who will be presenting KC Tech Specs to you, the Chief Operating Officer of the KC Tech Council and a 2021 Next Gen Leader by the Kansas City Business Journal, Kara Lowe.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here presenting KC Tech Specs, the product of a lot of hard work by the KC Tech Council team, our partners at RSM, and all of the volunteer leaders that you were introduced to just a couple moments ago. We are really thrilled to release V4 of KC Tech Specs. We've been releasing this report annually for some time now, and are thrilled that it continues to serve as a valuable resource, not only to our organization, but to the companies that we serve, to the elected leaders that we work with, and to the community at large. So without any further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So this year's report has been divided into 4 overall categories. The current state of the industry, which we have shared every year we've released this report, which includes economic market data for Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri. Oh, there I am, thanks. In this data will demonstrate the resiliency that we've seen in 2020 against all odds. We also will look at a critical opportunity to improve our industry through diversity, equity, and inclusion. Beyond that, we will look at our talent pipeline. As everyone on this at this event this morning knows, talent is a really critical asset to the tech industry. So we'll take a brief glimpse of how we stack up versus other markets in importing and exporting tech talent. And then lastly, we'll put on a bit of a prognosticator hat and look at the great after. This year will no doubt serve as an inflection point for our industry. So how do we determine future success? How do we ensure it for our organization, for our region, for our community? We will take a brief look at that and some of the ways that we can do just that for Kansas City's tech industry. I should also mention that this is just a glimpse of the report. The full report, all 40 plus pages of it, can be accessed at kctechspecs.com or at the KC Tech Council website. Please download it, spend some time with it. And if you're finding it valuable, our organization is always happy to present this report to any audience that you may be affiliated with your own organizations or groups that you may volunteer with as well. So let's get into our current state. We like to start with economic impact. We think it's pretty important to see the share of the economy for Kansas, Missouri, and Kansas City that tech is responsible for. You'll notice here that all of those economic shares for technology went up in 2020, a pretty exciting statistic given the year that we had economically across our entire country. And when you look at the percentage impact, one thing that jumps out here at us is that Kansas City is responsible for tech is responsible for more of Kansas City's economy than it is in either one of our states, Kansas or Missouri. This helps to kind of underscore why we are organized as the KC Tech Council representing our region rather than representing one state or the other. Tech is a bit more significantly represented here in the metro. So here's something very important. How does this economic impact translate to jobs? Well, in short, growth in 2020 has been extremely productive. Kansas City added the 3rd highest percentage of tech jobs of any US market, after only 2 pretty big tech hubs that you may recognize, Austin and San Francisco. Let me say that again. Kansas City added the 3rd highest amount of tech jobs by percentage of any market in the country in 2020. This is something that our region should be extraordinarily proud of, and this is momentum that we plan to harness and maximize. I'll also mention, if you look at that job growth just by raw number, not by percentage growth, we still are at number 11 of overall amount of tech jobs added in 2020, outpacing cities that are much larger than ours. All of that information is outlined in the full report. So how does this translate into numerical growth? So we added a 10-fold increase in year-over-year job growth from 2019 to 2020. So in 2020, we added 10 times the amount of jobs we did in 2019 in the tech industry in Kansas City. So in this case, resilience, when we talk about cementing our resiliency in this report, it's not just insulating our market from an economic storm or the industry from a storm that's going on economically. In our case, we set sail directly into that storm and came out of the other side even stronger. Again, this is something to be extremely proud of, and this is momentum that has the opportunity to be harnessed. So let's take a peek at that critical asset of the tech industry, our workers. In total, Kansas City claims almost 103,000 total tech jobs in our metro region. And we like to categorize these to sort of paint a picture of the distribution of where these jobs are. So these are spread pretty equally across 3 types of job category. Tech workers in other industries, so that would be a software developer working for perhaps a hospital system. Non-tech workers at a tech company, perhaps someone working in accounts payable at Cerner or Garmin. And then tech workers at a tech company, so perhaps a software developer at a software company. And if you look at this, the percentage distribution continues to be just about evenly spaced. That's why when you look at the investors of the Tech Council and the companies that really make up our tech industry, you see companies that are traditionally thought of as tech companies, but as we all know, every company to a certain degree is now a tech company, employing a pretty large tech workforce and reliant on a strong tech industry. Salaries continue to be an important measurement to track our competitive advantage against other markets. However, what we're seeing shift in 2020 is that as work becomes more remote and less entangled with the geographic area in which an employee sits, salary averages are less important to track by market, and we think it's more important for Kansas City to track its salary averages versus the US average. As we cast a wider net for workers across the entire country, those are the competition that we are now facing is across the entire United States rather than one market versus Kansas City. So you'll see here that Kansas City has a little bit more work to do to catch up. And I will mention that the percentage higher than the median area wage, so that last statistic essentially means how much more tech careers pay on average than the industry average in that market across all sectors. And you'll see in Kansas City, that number is a bit lower than that national average, showing that perhaps we have a little bit of work to do to remain more competitive. We also, at the Tech Council, release a monthly tech checkpoint report that outlines the workforce trends and metrics for that particular month. So we track companies posting the most jobs. We track the amount of various jobs that have qualifications for various certifications and skills. It helps to really put your finger on what's going on within tech hiring for that particular time period. We also are very fortunate to have some experts in talent and technology at EchoSelect provide some analysis each month that goes along with that report. And shameless plug, you can sign up for that report at kctechcouncil.com. We would love to send it to you as well. So looking at some of those tech checkpoint findings, this is the cumulative salary information across 2020 for the top 5 tech occupations most in demand in Kansas City in 2020. So in other words, if you're looking at job postings, these are the titles you're going to see the most in Kansas City for tech jobs. Across every one of these titles, in the navy, you see Kansas City's average salary, and the lighter blue is the United States. Kansas City's average salary lags a bit behind the US average salary for each one of these top job titles. And I will mention that the job title that we lag the most behind in average salary at a little over 14% is our #1 most in demand job. And that's, of course, software developer. Probably not terribly surprising to anyone on this call who hires tech careers. Now we'll take a peek back out of Kansas City and shift our focus to our states. The state of Missouri had a pretty similar year as years past. You'll notice that it kind of remains a mid-pack ranking of net tech jobs added and our rankings of net tech employment. And on this slide, you'll see that the state was home to nearly an addition of 1,000 new tech businesses in 2020, which is extremely encouraging for entrepreneurship as we all know that those startup tech companies create a terrific amount of jobs. However, you'll notice that the state lagged a bit in tech job postings, likely due to some pandemic-related hiring freezes and slowdown of finding those candidates, and in actual tech employment numbers. There was a bit of a step back from the year before. In Missouri, we have stayed nice and stable on the amount of employment as a percentage of the tech industry of the overall workforce. So the numbers you're seeing on this pie chart are the percentage of our overall workforce in Missouri that is encompassed by tech jobs. Let's shift our focus to Kansas. In Kansas, we've seen some marked improvement, notably skyrocketing in 2018 from dead last in net tech employment jobs added to number 12 in the year 2020. That's extremely encouraging news for the state of Kansas, especially because that net tech employment jobs added ranking is based on raw numbers of jobs added. It's not a percentage increase. It's not a per capita increase. It's raw number increase. And for a small state like Kansas, to be number 12 is a really, really exciting accomplishment. And kudos to those who are working in the state of Kansas to increase tech jobs and open more tech businesses to hire folks. So on the state rankings on Kansas, that also remains similar year over year as we've seen in Missouri. And then we'll shift to some of our metrics on tech businesses, job postings, and employment, all of which saw, I should say tech businesses and tech employment saw positive gains. Notably, tech employment grew by over 3,600 jobs in the state of Kansas. That's a really exciting growth. And similar to Missouri, tech job postings were down just slightly in Kansas. And again, that's likely due to some pandemic-related hiring freezes and slowdowns that we've seen tick back up since early 2020. Similar to Missouri, Kansas contributes just around 7% of its workforce as from tech jobs and tech careers. So that is another kind of similar stat between both states. So clearly, it has been a year to be extremely proud of. And I think we can all say that we weren't really sure of what that would look like when this year began. And now I'm pretty excited to welcome a guest that runs a company that has certainly seen their share of successes in 2020 and have been emblematic of some of the very numbers that we just presented. I'd like to bring back Ryan to chat with Blake Miller, the founder and CEO of Homebase. Ryan?
Thanks, Kara. And thank you, Blake, for joining us this morning to help us understand what data means to an entrepreneur and a CEO of a company like Homebase, which really, Blake, is a true data company. You mind telling everybody a little bit about what Homebase does real quick?
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to be here. And Ryan, thanks to you and your team for doing this for the city and keeping track of the numbers and data and how well we're doing and communicating it to everybody, because I think this is kind of one of those things is what it takes to actually get the word out with, as you guys call it, kind of the great after. People are moving. People are looking for new ways to live, work, play. And Kansas City is a great place to be. And you guys are showing that it's also a great place to work and build a great company too. So thanks to you and your team.
Yeah, you guys, a data company, when you had a chance to get a sneak peek of the report, was there any specific data points that struck out to you and your business specifically?
You know, I think one of the biggest things, we've been able to be very capital efficient, haven't raised a lot of VC capital. But I looked at and saw that, our VC capital numbers are up significantly since 2017. In fact, we raised $15 billion, and you can see where those dollars get spent. It gets spent in increasing the amount of open jobs and the things that are out there. But, we need more VC capital. We need more investment in new companies, and we need that to be able to invest in new companies and create new jobs and invest in the winners that are happening. I even saw that MTC the other day announced that they had another unicorn, but we're cutting funding. We need things to be able to continue to invest in those companies. So that was something that definitely stuck out, but it shows that Kansas City is a great place to come find new jobs.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning the capital side of things, because one of the first things new companies do when they raise a round of funding is hire people and continue to grow and scale that business. In today's presentation, there's really 3 categories that we're going to be discussing: resiliency, diversity, equity, inclusion, and the great after. When you hear those terms, Blake, does one of them stand out to you as something that you're currently experiencing in your company?
I mean, all of them, honestly. We are recruiting. We're looking for a diverse workforce. We're looking to provide equity and all of these things for folks, but we're also finding that we need to find ways to reskill folks. There are new jobs out there. There are new things that are happening, and what we do in being a smart building company and a smart data company, we're at the forefront of kind of robotics or kind of all the smart things in IoT, and so. We've been working with Rowena over at the FEC, the Full Employment Council, to not only be applying for new grants to start to develop and fund new workforce training programs in IoT and those sorts of things, but also helping to develop programs with her specifically. So, all of these things are very top of mind for us as a business that's trying to grow and attract talent and ultimately compete, everywhere in the country.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioned that, especially with growth and leveraging the resources in the community. We asked you to participate today because we saw that Homebase is looking to hire 100 people this year, and that's not going to be an easy feat for any tech company. But I'm certain there are some strengths here in Kansas City that are contributing to your decision to stay, grow, and then scale this business here. What are some of those strengths, Blake?
Kansas City is a great place centrally located where, you can get anywhere, obviously, very, very quickly. But I think specifically to our workforce and where we see value to be able to hire a lot of people specifically here is our amount of developers and software engineers and folks that are already here because of industries that have already been created. So, we have a lot of those jobs, need to continue to create more. But Kansas City is a great place to build a team of diverse people. So those are some of the things that we focused on, but we have to find more people. We were fortunate enough to be able to get a grant from the state, the Missouri Works program, to be able to afford to hire some of those folks. So we were fortunate to be able to participate in that program.
You're smart to use those programs, Blake, and participate in those. They're available and certainly need more participation in those. And I also appreciate you mentioning diversity because, as you'll all learn here soon, that's a good tee up to the next section of the report. And our chairperson, Karen Hornig, mentioned this in her presentation earlier. It makes a good business sense, makes good ROI, and it's measurable. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Blake, thank you for participating today and sharing your thoughts. We're going to turn it back over to Kara for the next section of the report on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
All right. Thank you, Ryan and Blake. Exciting news at Homebase. And I know there's a lot of other stories like Homebase in Kansas City. And we're excited to champion those companies that are growing just like Blake's company. So moving on to the next section of our report, KC Tech Specs, there's a lot for us to be proud of, but this report is not just a brag book. And we are really pleased and excited that we're able to present some areas that we think we have the opportunity to improve and to make our region even stronger. In a year that revealed the systemic inequalities that are so pervasive, not only in our daily lives, but certainly in our workplaces, this is the moment to focus on how diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, can improve our region, our lives, and our tech industry specifically for our purposes today. So, in the report in KC Tech Specs, which again is available at kctechspecs.com, we outline 4 critical outcomes that meaningful DEI strategy can hold for organizations: recruit and retain talent, foster productivity and innovation, boost employer reputation, and deliver strong financial performance. If I listed those 4 outcomes for any company leader that we work with and said, I've got one strategy that could get you there, I think everyone would be in agreement that it was a worthwhile strategy. And happily, there are some strategies in place that we're excited to champion that will increase DEI in our tech industry. We're also very, very pleased that we're able to offer some sense of measurement of progress around diversity, equity, and inclusion in this year's report. So our partners at CompTIA, which we rely on for a lot of the data in this report, and we partner with annually on some public advocacy and a host of other means, they have outlined a diversity index that divides metro areas and states into quartiles that measures their amount of progress in kind of two metrics, quantity and distribution of race and ethnicity within the workforce. And this is reflected then in a single metric. So the first quartile would be markets and states that are most productive in those metrics. And then the fourth quartile would be, of course, least productive. So let's take a look at how we are measuring up. On all of these, I'm going to show you Kansas, Missouri, and Kansas City. You're going to see the share of the tech workforce for each of these categories of worker: Black and African American, Hispanic and Latino, and women. And you'll notice across all three of these states and city that our representation in the tech industry is less than the representation across the general workforce. So tech has some catching up to do. Kansas, Missouri, and Kansas City are all in the third out of those four quartiles of the diversity index. So this clearly demonstrates an opportunity that we have to improve through meaningful DEI workforce initiatives. And I'll mention, to be fair, no market or state can claim to be completely representative in their tech industry of the community in which it resides. Tech tends to be less diverse than other industries across the country. This is not a problem unique to Kansas City, but it is one that we think there could be meaningful strategies to solve and to put us a step ahead. And we're excited not only to talk about meaningful strategies, but to implement them too. We're ready to get to work. Earlier in late 2020, the KC Tech Council embarked on a brand new tech apprenticeship program, a partnership with an organization out of Washington State that was started in part to increase the population of underrepresented individuals in tech, specifically meaning looking at racial minorities, women, and utilizing the veteran community to shore up more representation in the tech industry. So I'm excited right now to introduce our team member here at the KC Tech Council, who's been small tasked with leading this program across our region and on behalf of it. Erin Christensen, who has a special guest of her own today. Erin.
Excuse me. Thank you, Kara. It is clear that there is a lack of talent coming from traditional computer science programs, but there is also a significant lack of diversity as well. And as Kara noted, I am excited to be part of the KC Tech Council to lead this initiative to not only expand our tech talent pipeline, but diversify it. Apprenti is a national apprenticeship program which identifies talent from non-traditional sources, and it is designed to complement companies' existing recruiting methods. I recently had the opportunity to talk with one of our first apprentices for a few minutes to hear about her experience thus far with the program.
Okay, so hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me about your experience with Apprenti. I would first love to hear about your background and what initially led you to being interested in a career in tech and then subsequently applying to Apprenti.
Okay, so I have a math degree from Virginia State University with a concentration in secondary education. So for the past 6 to 8 years, I've been a math teacher, and I've taught all grades from 5th to 12th, all different subjects of math. I am also in the Army Reserves, and I've been doing that for 11 years, coming up on 12 years now, actually. So in the reserves, I am in an IT specialist role, and I wanted to get into it in the civilian side, mostly, of course, to increase my salary, but also I enjoy doing it. And I felt like I could still do meaningful work because, of course, teaching is such meaningful work. And I felt like I could still do meaningful work in IT. So that is how I got to Apprenti. I went through the Department of Labor and got connected with Tech Impact here in Delaware, and then got some correspondence from Tech Impact to go ahead and apply for Apprenti, and scored well. So then I got placed.
Yeah, great. And so you'll be doing a cybersecurity apprenticeship with Bar Advisory, headquartered here in Kansas City, but you'll be working remote in Delaware. I guess, what made you interested in cybersecurity? Out of all of the different apprenticeships that Apprenti offers, what was appealing to you about cybersecurity?
So like I already mentioned, I wanted to feel like I still did important work, coming from being a teacher.
Yeah.
And I actually was offered an apprenticeship first in just IT support, I guess kind of like help desk or something like that. And I just knew that that wasn't really what I wanted to do. But I felt like cybersecurity was important. It's meaningful, it's appreciated, it's important, and it's something that I could find purpose in and enjoy.
Yeah, great, thank you. So you'll be starting with Bar Advisory officially on June 1st, which is exciting. I know they're so excited to have you. Can you tell me about your experience interviewing with Bar and what ultimately made them stand out to you and why you decided to accept an apprenticeship from them?
Of course, when you're about to go for an interview, you do your homework and check up on the company. And when I was checking up, looking at the employee reviews, that's usually how I start. There was nothing negative that people had to say. And I found that to be different, from other employers. People, at least you can usually at least find one person who's saying, well, this is a con about the job, but honestly, people were saying, I have no complaints about working at Bar. It's a great company. You learn a lot there, and you have a lot of freedom to learn and make mistakes. And as a teacher, I understand how important it is to kind of get that hands-on learning and be able to make mistakes in a constructive environment where you can get some good feedback and learn a lot of material. And when I was interviewing with Bar, asking questions about what I would be doing, she let me know that I would get experience in a lot of different aspects of cybersecurity, which just starting off is really what I was concerned about, really what I was interested in, because not really having a cybersecurity background, I wasn't sure exactly what field I wanted to get to within it, because there's so many different avenues that you could go to. So I'm just excited to be a part of a company that spoke so highly about, and where I could get a lot of information and learning.
Yeah, great. Well, we are so, like I said, so excited for you to be joining the Kansas City market, even in a remote capacity. And I loved hearing real quick about your experience going through the Apprenti process, as well as your experience with Bar Advisory. I know that they are equally excited to have you as well. So thank you again for taking time today to share that with us. And we're excited to hear how your apprenticeship continues throughout the next year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks, Erin and Kristen, for that. We really are so excited to have folks like Kristen in our candidate pool at Apprenti. And I should mention, this is certainly indicative of some of the trends that we're seeing here, where we do have an uptick in remote work and remote talent available. I'll mention too that we have more than 100 plus candidates in our Apprenti talent pipeline that are already passed their Apprenti candidate qualification exam, that are from Kansas City and are awaiting those apprenticeships to open up. And we're off and running and working hard, working with several terrific Kansas City employers, and welcome more and more of them every day. If you're interested in hearing more about how Apprenti could work for your organization, please reach out to us. We would be pleased to give you a thorough overview and kind of talk about how this really syncs up with your goals. So we are excited, to offer on-ramps to candidates like Kristen. We also are fortunate that Kansas City continues to attract talent outside of our market. So the report also goes into some comparison metrics that dive a lot deeper into the talent pipeline. But one that I want to highlight today As shown, and we've shown this a few different years in this report, is our brain gain, brain drain slide from CBRE's Scoring Tech Talent report that they release annually. Something that we think is pretty interesting in this is at first glance, this is just all good news for Kansas City. We have imported a significant number of tech talent and have every year that we've released this report. We always end up in the positive and near the top and ahead of some other much larger cities. What we also need to take into consideration too is this brain gain, brain drain essentially is the balance of an import-export of tech talent. So we are not exporting very much tech talent because we are not generating as much of it in Kansas City as some other markets are. So that's an opportunity for growth. And we in our report have outlined a number of different parts of the talent pipeline where we are measuring our progress in generating that tech talent, starting all the way from K through 12 and public policy legislation measures that can take hold to increase computer science in our schools in both Kansas and Missouri, to our post-secondary system and how our college recruiting numbers stack up with some other states that our employers rely on to recruit from, and then how that parallels with some salary data. And then workforce initiatives like Apprenti and others. We invite you to explore all of those. We think it's a really important part of the calculus. We won't get into all of it today, but it is available at kctechspecs.com. So we wanted to conclude today with what comes next. And I'll be honest, do we know? No, I don't think so. And if you do know, please let us know, because I think it's all kind of unclear what exactly will come from here. But there are some clues and there are some things that we can take from the past to help dictate what may happen in our future. So here are two scenarios that tech experienced that were inflection points and kind of what came next. The first was, of course, the Great Recession. Everywhere else, the Great Recession was a significant speed bump in other industries. Certainly, we know the financial sector was decimated to some degree by the Great Recession. But in Silicon Valley, it kind of launched what is continued now to be a startup boom. Startups increased by 25% in the first 5 years after the Great Recession and continued to increase from that time to today. So what maybe started as a bit of a speed bump for tech ended up becoming a bit more of a catalyst for change in the industry. And then the second scenario was, of course, the dot-com bust at the turn of the millennium. This provided a pretty selective editing of the tech industry, a control delete, if you will, editing out some companies that just were weaker and really kind of hitting tech harder, and rightfully so, as it indicates here in the quote. Because the dot-com bust started inside of the tech industry itself, and it really kind of separated the strong from the weak companies. So which of these post-pandemic scenarios will be more mirrored, the Great Recession or that dot-com bust? Early indications show that it's going to be, for tech, more of a Great Recession-like economic recovery. Tech has demonstrably been hit in 2020, as this chart shows the annual change in total employment, the rate of change. And again, I should point this out, this chart is showing the percentage growth or decline in total employment in tech and all industries. Tech is still above, they're still in the positive. So despite all the challenges in 2020, tech still posted national job gains. It just was not as significant of a gain as maybe we saw in years prior. Whereas if you look across all industries, a job loss was posted of about 2.8%. So even though we experienced hiring freezes, the pandemic didn't hold these job gains back for tech. Additionally, and this is the wild card, is the particular effects of the post-pandemic workplace, namely where that work is placed. Remote work has always been embraced by tech. The percentage of job postings indicating remote work more than doubled in 2020 for tech jobs. They increased across all industries as well, but if you isolate just white collar jobs, it wasn't near the increase that tech jobs saw. So who's driving this motivation for remote work? Well, of course, it is the engine that drives the tech industry itself, our workers. So this Indeed.com survey that was released kind of toward the end of 2020 measured some workers' inclinations of where they want to work, if they're going to change jobs, if they're going to change locations. And we think this is pretty insightful to sort of see where we might be headed. So the survey, I should mention, it indicated that upwards of 60% of tech workers are considering a job change in the next 12 months. Say that again, 60%. This is leading to some fears among some HR professionals of what is being dubbed a turnover tsunami, as a lot of those motivations to change jobs that would have maybe ebbed and flowed over the span of a year have kind of stacked up and may all get kind of released around the same time. So if those workers that are planning to change jobs do so, where do they want to work? Well, a whopping 90% of them, as shown here on this chart, would like either a flexible or hybrid option or to work remotely full-time. Only about 7% indicate they would like full-time in the office work. So all of this could lead to some unprecedented talent liquidity in the tech industry. And in an industry that has a pretty tight talent market to begin with, this is something that we've not really experienced before. Another area primed to experience that liquidity is geographic location. So in the same Indeed.com survey, 52% of tech workers are considering other geographic areas for their relocation. And here, I'm going to show you there on the screen the reasons for such consideration of a relocation, geographically speaking. So if you're on this call and you're selling Kansas City, these reasons sound pretty good, right? Improve quality of life, reduce cost of living, be closer to family. We are really good at all of those and fulfilling all three of those reasons. But I'll mention, and a caveat, most workers who said they do plan to relocate, geographically speaking, plan to stay within the same home state. About 19% said that they would like to relocate out of their state currently. So this might be indicating people who plan to maybe move out of high density cities into, maybe more spread out suburban, exurban communities. But 3 out of 4 of those workers, even if they do plan to relocate, say it's critical for them to remain near a tech hub. And we think it's critical for a aspiring future leading tech hub like Kansas City to absolutely create opportunities for these workers to connect, despite if they're remote or not, to have some in-person opportunities to build those networks. And at the Tech Council, that's a priority of ours as well. So what to make of all of this and what to keep an eye on? It feels like certainly changes are afoot for the industry's workforce, for the way that we recruit and retain, and for how we compete against other markets. So here are a few things that we recommend that organizations and economic groups keep an eye on. Big tech would be the first. The 5 major tech employers along the West Coast tend to set the stage. So if Facebook, for instance, decides to keep its workers remote, that puts pressure on everyone else to do something like that. Keep an eye on the decisions that they are making in terms of workforce and culture and recruitment. Satellite headquarters. This isn't necessarily a new thing. As we know, a couple years ago, this community really went to bat for Amazon's HQ2 project. This has been a trend for some years now, but we're looking at a potential acceleration as companies feel the need to connect with maybe some of their smaller remote-based talent pools across the country. So keep an eye on those satellite headquarters. Pay attention to retention. Retention has become more important now than ever before. It is, as we all know, less expensive to retain the employee you have than it is to find a new one. And that starts with listening to your workers. We've presented some of the national data around what workers are feeling and their motivations around how they would like to work, what would make them happy. But it really starts with listening within your own 4 walls as well. And thinking creatively around beyond just salary, but on total compensation and ways to retain workers through reskilling and other, individual unique perks. We have a lot of partners in talent and HR at the Tech Council that we are privileged to receive advisement and publish some of those ideas to our members as well. This gives you a better shot at competing during this impending talent tsunami. Embrace the moment. As we outlined today, it has become more clear that DEI is an opportunity to be embraced. And in this same Indeed.com survey, more than half employees are positive and optimistic that the pandemic and the post-pandemic workplace will embrace more diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And they're excited about it. So employers that embrace that trend and embrace that moment for all of the reasons we've outlined today and then some are maybe ahead of those who don't. And then lastly, watch the double-edged sword. So say you're casting a wide net to catch top talent outside of Kansas City, expect that same net to cast within your organization from other markets to your top employees as well. Something to pay attention to, certainly. So this concludes the data that we are presenting today. I will mention, as we have numerous times, the full report with all of our data is available at kctechspecs.com. We also invite you to connect with us at info@kctechcouncil.com, at our website. We would be pleased to chat with you about anything we've released today and any questions you may have, or if you'd like to get more involved with the organization, we're always happy to talk about that. So before I let you go, I want to thank our gracious governors, Laura Kelly and Mike Parson. Thank you so much for your time, for listening to our organization and being such good partners to us as we work to make Kansas and Missouri a better home for technology and its companies. Thank you to Davis Nordell and the RSM team, who have been critical partners of ours for this year's report and for many years. We really appreciate your insight. Thank you to our intrepid board chairwoman, Karen Hornig, for your insight, for your leadership. And thank you to our special guests, Blake Miller, a leader in technology in Kansas City at Homebase AI, and Kristen Strand, a future leader of technology in Kansas City, and congratulations on your apprenticeship. And lastly, and most importantly, thank you to our team at the KC Tech Council. Thank you to Alexa, Haley, Aaron, and Ryan for all of the work on this year's report and for all the work that we do on a daily basis. I will let you off the Zoom. Thank you all very much, and we hope to see you all in person very soon. Take care.